Good evening, everyone. So welcome to webinars with Dr. Chaitra Bharat. I'm Dr. Chaitra Bharat, and on behalf of Phoenix Academy, myself, I welcome you all to today's webinar on organic farm certification. To give the presentation and to answer all your questions regarding this topic, we have Mr. Manoj Kumar, who has more than 20 years of experience as a professional certified organic certification and free trade consultant. So now let me put him on so that all of you can see him and see his presentation. So welcome, Mr. Manoj. Please on your video and unmute yourself. Yes, welcome, sir.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So, hope my video is on. So good evening, everybody. So, thanks very much, Dr. Chaitra, for giving me an opportunity to have a webinar today on organic farm certification. So, let me just introduce myself. So, I am Mr. Manoj from Bangalore. So, I have 20 years of experience in organic agriculture. So presently doing organic certification and fair trade certification consultancy in Bangalore. So I have worked in the past with a reputed certification agency called Control Union Certifications for more than 7 years. And also I was a part of APOF Organic Certification Agency from 2014 to 2018. So my career span of 20 years, almost I've spent nearly 11 years in the certification agency. So afterwards, I'm into the consultancy now. So it would be a great opportunity for me to give awareness and insight on what organic certification is. Because many people, when we go out, so they ask a lot of questions like, how reliable is organic? What really organic is? Is it really complicated or not? So the procedures are so complicated. So there are so many questions that I come across during my visit to many places. So let me just answer those in form of a small presentation. So let us just take the question and answer at the end. So I request all of you just to listen till the end, and when we complete the session, so we can have a question answer session so that we can answer all the queries. Okay. Thanks very much for being with me. So let me just start my presentation. Let us just start the program with organic certification. So what do you mean by organic certification? First of all, I would like to inform you that organic is a way of sustainable program. So what do you mean by sustainability? So there are so many sustainable programs in India right now. So of which organic is one of the most important sustainable agriculture mode. So what do you mean by sustainability? Sustainability means focusing on meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. So that means to say we need not have to compromise the present so that the future will not be affected. So this is the meaning of sustainability. So organic is one of the most sustainable, most accepted sustainable programs of many organic, many sustainable programs as such. So I will tell you what are the sustainable programs that is available as of now in the world in the later part of my presentation. So what are the pillars of sustainability? How you can say that a program or activity is sustainable? So once you say that it is sustainable, it should have an environmental protection. So there should be an environmental health that leads to better planet, that is better environment and better living, the living land. So better planet. Social equity. So respect for the society and human rights of the people involved so that the communities will be better. So it will be better community. And third and most importantly, economic viability. Until and unless the activity is economically viable, you cannot call it as a sustainable program. So these are all the three pillars of sustainable agriculture actually. So one is environmental protection, social equity, and economic viability. So of all the certain, as I mentioned to you, So there are various other sustainable programs available, of which organic is most important. There are other sustainable programs such as Rainforest Alliance, Fair Trade certification, then Wood certified coffee, then Global Gap, good agricultural practices, and there are other certification programs which are from sustainable programs as such. Okay, so let us see what exactly the meaning of organic. So how do you say, how do you find the term organic? There are so many definitions to organic, but one of the most important definitions are organic farming is a system which avoids or largely excludes any synthetic inputs such as fertilizers, pesticides, hormones, and to the maximum extent feasibly rely on crop rotation, crop residues, animal manures, on-farm organic waste, mineral grade rock additives, and biological system of nutrient mobilization. So as per USDA, USDA means United States Department of Agriculture, as per their terminology, organic farming is one system where it largely excludes fertilizers, pesticides, and hormones and other feed additives to the maximum extent possible and rely on crop residues, animal manures, and organic farm waste. So it's a holistic approach. For a layman, it is just not using fertilizers and pesticides, but as a holistic approach, it should have more and more components of crop residues, animal manures, and so on. So as per FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United States, organic agriculture is a unique production system which promotes and enhances agro-ecosystem health, including biodiversity, biological cycles, and biological activity. And this is accomplished by using on-farm agronomic, biological, and mechanical methods in the inclusion of exclusion of all synthetic off-farm inputs. So basically, FAO talks about better agro system and biological activities. So there are so many definitions to it. If you see in the Google, you can find n number of definitions, but most predominantly that is accepted are these two definitions worldwide. So then what all the organic farming components are, as mentioned by USDA and FAO, it is mainly concentrating on the on-farm inputs, especially green leaf manures, green leaf manure in situ, crop rotation, biological management, animal husbandry. Your all cattle, sheep, goat, whatever it is. So animal husbandry part should be treated properly as organic. Then use of biofertilizers and biomanures and vermicompost prepared on farm. So these are all various components that a farmer or an individual farmer or a farmer group need to accomplish with to be called as an organic farmer. Just avoiding synthetic fertilizers and chemicals, it does not mean it as organic, but it should have a holistic approach comprising of all these components. So then what is the meaning of organic certification? So why should we go for organic certification? So what do you mean by certification? Certification is nothing but a system where, or the procedure by which an accredited certification body, by way of issuing a scope certificate, assures that production or processing system of the operator has been methodically assessed and conforms to the specific requirements as envisaged in the National Program for Organic Production. So that means to say, a certification is a third-party assurance where a certification body gives an assurance that a system of production or a production system is in place with a certain standards being followed. So here we should note very important thing is that we are certifying a piece of land. Organic certification refers to a certification of farm land, but it is not a product certification. So many people have been confused with this. So actually what is happening here is many people are confused. It's a product certification. No, it is actually a system certification. It is a production process certification. So we certify a piece of land, but not the product. So whatever that is certified on a piece of land, maybe an acre or 2 acre or 5 acre, whatever it is. So whatever the products, whatever the crops that is grown on that piece of land is certified as organic. So we need not have to call as a product certification, but it is a process certification. So again, certification program is an assess of the results of the inspection in relation to requirements of the organic standard. So what is the meaning of accreditation? So you may ask a question like, what is the meaning of accreditation? Who are the accreditation? Who are the certification agencies? Accreditation is a process that guarantees that certification program is competent to carry out specific tasks. That means to say, for example, there are so many certification bodies in India. I'll just come to that later. So they are all accredited. Accredited means they are already licensed by an accreditation agency. There must be somebody to certify you. So those are all called certification agency. They will be accredited. That means they will be getting a license from somebody that is called as accreditation. So accreditation bodies. So accreditation bodies, or the authoritative body defines policies, standards, and checks whether a certification system is operating according to the standard or not. There are various accreditation programs in national, European Union, ISO, IFOAM, NPOP, NOP, JAS. There are so many accreditation programs that is happening in the world. So these certification bodies get the accreditation by some other agency. It's called accreditation bodies. So for example, in India, APIDA, Agriculture and Process Export Development Authority, is the nodal agency for accreditation of all the certification bodies in India. APED, APIDA, that means Agricultural and Processed Food Products Development Authority. So this is based in New Delhi. It is one of the wing of Commerce, Department of Commerce and Industry. So they are the nodal agency in India for accreditation of certification agencies in India. Then why do we need certification, first of all? So there are so many certification agencies in India which have been accredited by a accreditation agency like APIDA. Why do we need certification? So certification is nothing but a third party assurance from producer to the consumer separated by a distance. So there are consumers and there are producers. So there should be a gap. There is a gap. So how to bridge that? So that means certification agency in between as a third party, they assure that the production system or the process that is adopted during the certification program is actually in compliance with the standard. So they are the ones who assures. So without an assurance, one cannot trust. So for example, we are all studying in, we have passed 10th standard, 12th standard degree. So who are certifying us? Who are approving us that we have been qualified? So it is a board, like PU board is there, SSLC board is there, then universities are there. So these are all the agencies or institutes. They approve us, that they give the qualification status to us. So in the similar fashion, so these are all the certification agencies. They approve the production system, that the production is as per the standard. So that's why we need certification. So there will be an uniform label, so throughout, so that the consumers can see the label and then accept, oh yes, this is the being certified. So there should be some identity. So for the identity, you need a label. So who has certified you? Who is the certification agency? So there must be something, identity. So for that, you need a certification. So this assures to the consumers that its concerns about healthy food has been addressed. That is, concern for healthy food has been addressed. And effective marketing tool, it's also a marketing tool for image, credibility, visibility, and transparency. So for this reason, so we need to have a certification or a certifier in between. So again, balance of interest. So between the consumers and the processors. So there is a, yeah, it's a balance of interest between consumers and processors. So the consumers request for a healthy and environmental sound products and are willing to pay premium, and process or farmers or processors are producing according to the certain standards. So this is why you need a certification system. I'm unable to go down.
So please use your arrow key.
Yes, I'm using that. I don't know what is the reason. Sorry.
On your laptop keyboard, you can use the arrow key, sir.
I'm just using, I'm not able to go back. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. So, what are the various certification programs that are available in India? So there are various certification programs available all over the world, I can say. Is National Program for Organic Production, that is NPOP in India. National Organic Program of USDA, that is United States Department of Agriculture. So if you want to export the products certified in India as per NOP standard to American countries, then you need to have this USDA certification. If you want to do the domestic sales within India, or you want to export to European countries, then you can go for National Program for Organic Production only for fresh produce, not the processed ones. If you want to export products to European countries, then you need to have Organic EU. So you must comply with different standards. So NPOP for India, NOP for exporting to United States, Organic EU for exporting to European countries, then Japanese agriculture standard for Japan. So if you want to export your products to Japan, first and foremost thing, you need to comply with NPOP standard, and over and above, on top of that, you need to have a separate certification based on your requirement, based on your buyer's requirement. If you want to sell it to Japan market, then you need to have a Japanese agriculture standard on top of NPOP, that is National Program for Organic Production in India. There are various other certification programs that is available based on countries. Different countries have got different labels. There is a Naturland certification from Germany. There is a Demeter certification from Germany. There is a Korea Organic. There is a Biosys from Switzerland. So these are all in addition to Organic EU. For example, if you want to sell it to European market, then you should first take Organic EU certification, and on top of that, you need to have Naturland certification separately, Demeter certification separately, as per your buyer's requirement, because there is a buyer's demand. Buyers ask, I need a Demeter certified product, organic product. Then you need to get a separate certification for Demeter program. So a Switzerland-based organization, a buyer will ask for a Biosys certification. Then you need to go for a Biosys certification on top of NPOP. So NPOP is the law of the land. That is the basis for organic certification in India. And on top of that, you can go for any of these certification programs based on your buyer's requirement. So as I mentioned to you, these are all the three certification programs, NPOP, NOP, and EU. So in India, as I have mentioned to you, is as per NPOP standard. What do you mean by NPOP? NPOP means National Program for Organic Production. So as you can see, I have just put a cover page of the NPOP standard here. Actually, this is a 221 pages document. This is a NPOP standard. So as per this standard, all the certification agencies, they certify the farm or the process or the production process as organic. So APIDA is the nodal agency in India for accreditation program for all the certification bodies in India. So you can see here India Organic logo. So you need to put an India Organic logo whenever there is any domestic sales or any export that is happening. So it's a product of India. So this is India Organic logo. When you are organic, so what do you mean by organic? So if you have this emblem or logo, then people will immediately identify, yes, he is organically, the producer is organically certified. So the Department of Commerce, so Ministry of Commerce and Industry, the APIDA comes under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. They develop the standard. There is a lot of procedures for developing a standard. There is a National Steering Committee, and the National Steering Committee approves the standard, and it goes for a revision as and when required. So it's not a static, it's always a dynamic. It keeps changing as per the requirement of the producers, as per the requirements of the buyers. If there is any lacuna in the standard, they will review it as and when required. So the latest edition is around 2016 is the edition. So this is how, if you log into APIDA website, you will see this icon there. So from this, you can go for any details like certification body or operator details is there, accredited inspection and certification agencies, who are all the certification agencies in India. You can find the entire list in this. And also you can find the tariffs, that is what are the certification fee charged by all certification agency. All these are uploaded in the APIDA website. So if you click that, so you will find maximum information from that. So as you can see here on the right hand side, so revised NPOP standards 2014 is there, but for that there are a lot of additions, amendments that has happened. So this is the latest version that is available on APIDA website, but you can see many appendix that have been included, that have been added in recent times. So if you click that, so you can download the NPOP standard. It's a 221 pages document. So as per that document, all the certification agencies do inspect and certify. So just a glimpse of the certification agencies in India. There are 29 accredited certification agencies in India by APIDA. So you can see the entire list here. So they are located in different parts of India. So in this, the earlier ones are the private certification agencies that came to India during 90s, that is 98, 99, during that period when I just started engaging in organic certification. So IMO control, the third from this list, is the first organic certification body in India. So they have a presence in Switzerland, but they started certification body in India in 1998. So that was the first certification agencies. The reason was earlier for organic certification, people used to come from Europe and other parts of the world. So the certification cost used to be very, very high. During that period, I still remember the cost of an individual farmer for a certification was more than 50,000 rupees, because they have to come all the way from different parts of the world, Europe especially. So the certification costs were very high. So then a lot of changes happened. Then all the multinational, they started opening a branch office in India. So from 1997, 98. So, and you can see here the serial number 8 is CU Inspections India Private Limited. So this is the second certification body in India. So started in 2000. And then EcoCert is the third certification agency, so on. After that, 2002, 2003, many certification agencies started in India. Then a lot of government certification bodies started certifying. So they started getting accreditation. Now you can see Rajasthan State Organic Certification Agency, then Gujarat Organic Certification Agency, then Tamil Nadu Organic Certification Agency, and so on. So there are many certification agencies that is belong to the government. So you can see the list. I'll just go with the glimpse of this. So you can see again just a few certification bodies I have listed here. So there is one called Karnataka Organic State Organic Certification Agency in Hebbal in Bangalore. EcoCert, this is based in Gurgaon. So IMO Control is in Bangalore. Aditya Organic Certification Agency in Bangalore. Control Union, they have also got a branch office in India. In Bangalore. So there are various certification agencies put up across whole India. We have got more than 4 certification agencies in Bangalore itself. So what are the themes of certification? So what exactly can be certified? So the theme of the certifications are so what are all the ways of doing certification? So there are so many ways of certification. That is, an individual farmer can get a certification. A group of farmers, it's called a cooperative, can come together and form a group, and they can apply for certification. The processor needs to get a certification, a trader, and there is a wild collection. So an individual farmer who has like 5 acres, 10 acres, 50 acres, there is no limit for an individual farmer to get a certification. So he can get certification, but only the cost matters. Otherwise, an individual farmer can belong to a group of farmers, and a group of farmers can apply for a certification. So it's called as a group certification. So always a group certification is always cost effective, because the individual farmer it may be cost may be high, but there is no limit for an individual farmer to get a certification. But for a group farmer to get a certification, there is a ceiling limit, like 500 farmers is the maximum number of farmers that can be accommodated in a group. So that is called farmer group certification. So again, the entire supply chain has to be certified. That is, a processor who bring the produce, who purchases the produce from an individual farmer or a group of farmer as organic, then he will again process the product and then he exports. So he needs to be certified again. So it's the entire supply chain. There should not be any break in between. For example, turmeric. So turmeric means turmeric fingers or turmeric slices that can be purchased as organic from an individual farmer or a group of farmer, and a processor can do value additions like turmeric powder he can do, turmeric tea cut he can do, there are various, or turmeric juice he can do. So there are so many value additions. So when he does that, so he need to be certified again by a certification agency as a processor. So again, if there are any traders who doesn't want to do any processing, he just want to buy and sell, he can do so as a trader certification. And there is fifth one is called as wild collections. So it's like a minor forest produce and major forest produce that can be collected from a wild collection, that also can be certified. It's not actually it's a certification, but it is only mainly wild harvest approval. Actually, it's a certification, but the process is called a collection or a approval. So wild collectors are there. For example, wild amla is available in the forest area, like Ternalia chebula, Ternalia bellerica, that is Hareda, Bheda. So there are so many minor forest produce that can be collected. Even honey is also collected from the wild forest, and then they collect it, they process it, and it is exported. So it's a wild collection certification. So what are all the other products that can be certified apart from agriculture produce? So apart from agriculture produce, livestock, that is animal and poultry, that is cattle, sheep, goat, these things come under animal husbandry. For example, cow, ghee is also certified. Then milk is certified organic. So this comes under animal husbandry part. Then aquaculture, like fish, prawns, and all seafoods can be certified as organic. Then beekeeping, that is apiary. So these things have got a separate standard, separate procedures for certification. Whatever I have told, individual farmer, group farmer, processor, that's one category. And these are all a separate category altogether. So this has to be certified in a separate standard as such. But these are all come under NPOP. So mushroom can be certified, animal feed can be certified, seaweed and seaweed extracts can be certified, and aquatic plants, greenhouse production and inputs. There are so many input companies. That is, for example, there are so many companies who are manufacturing organic inputs, that is approved by certification agency. For example, vermicompost. There are some biopesticides. There are some growth promoters. So these are also certified as organic inputs as per the organic input standard. It all comes under NPOP. There is a separate standard for the certification. So as I mentioned to you earlier, so there are three basic certifications. That is, first one you can see here, the green with some stars is called U certification. Then second one is USDA organic. Then third one is Japanese agriculture standard. Then of course the basic I have already mentioned is India organic logo. So you can see India organic, that is NPOP standard. So recently there is one more certification that is gaining popularity. It is called PGS system, that is participatory guarantee system. This is not actually a certification, but it is an approval system where one group endorses the other group as they are doing organic, but it is not a third party. So that's why still it is not so popular, but still government is trying to push this for certification in the domestic market. So PGS green means it's already certified. So PGS organic, it is under in conversion. So of late now in 2016-17, Government of India, that is FSSAI, so Food Safety Standard Authority of India, came out with a separate notification saying that anybody who are selling products in the domestic market as organic, they need to put the logo as Jaivik Bharat logo, as you can see on your screen at the right side. So Jaivik Bharat logo. So this is the logo which a producer or a processor, when he is selling in the domestic market, should put if he is claiming the product as organic. Otherwise it is an offense. Actually there are, if you can see in domestic market in India, there are n number of outlets here in Bangalore and various major towns and cities who are selling as organic, but the authenticity is a big question. So the consumers awareness should come. So they should question the marketers or the sellers of the produce, whether this is really certified or not. If it is certified, who is the certifier, where is it from which farmer, from which farmer group it has come from. So still the awareness in the consumer's mind is lacking. So that we need to build an awareness so that we can see a good genuine product in the market. When the people start asking questions about the certification authenticity, then definitely a lot of things can be filtered and you can find good genuine organic food product in the market. So as per FSSAI, Food Safety Standard Authority of India, so you need to put a logo for all packed products which is sold as organic in India. What are the key organic quality control certification agency can do? So first of all, the 4 keys to organic quality is accreditation. That is, a certification body will get an accreditation, that is a license from APIDA. Then they follow NPOP or NOP or whatever the standards as such. They do inspection and then they certify. So these are all the 4 major steps that is involved in a certification process. That is accreditation. First, the certification body get approval or a license to do certification in India. Then they apply standard, they follow standard, then they do audits or inspection as per the standard, and they do certification. What are the what do you mean by standard? So standards define the production methods, not the product quality. As I have mentioned to you earlier, it only defines whether your production system is as per the requirement, as per the compliance criteria. It does not say your product is organic, but it only says the production process you have followed is as per the standard. So as I mentioned to you, it's a production system that is certified and a piece of land that is certified, and it is not a product certification. But whatever you grow on that particular piece of land is certified, means you can claim that as organic. So it is a minimum requirement and not the best practice. So they say that it should be like this. The standard says it should be like this. The compliance criteria is like this, and you need to follow the standard. But it never say you should not go beyond that. So if you are practicing even better practices or best practices, whatever that is mentioned in the standard, it is very welcome. So there are standards, regulations. It is a continuity and it's developed over a period of time. It gets reviewed and changes happen very often. So let us come to the certification procedure. How does the certification process happens? So first, if you are an individual farmer or a group of farmers, they have to apply to the certification agency with an application. So they receive the applications and they send you certain documents, standard and operational documents for you to fill the details and send it back to them. So they review your application and they send, as per your requirement, they send application packet. So as per your requirement, for example, if you are a processor, they will send the documents that is required for a processor. If you are an individual farmer, they will send you an individual farmer document to be filled up. If you are a group of farmers, then they will send you a group of farmers document. So you need to fill that and submit to the certification agencies, and they offer you an offer letter or an agreement happens between the certification body and the applicant. So you will come to an agreement for the certification process. So once you get an agreement signed between both the parties, then the registration happens. That means certification agency will register you as an operator, and then they invoice you as per the agreement or as per the offer letter. So they invoice you for the payment. So the details are very much clear in the agreement. The payment, how should be done, and all these things will be mentioned in the agreement. So as per the agreement, you need to pay the certification fee. Usually 50% payment you have to pay, and the balance 50% once the certification is done, or 70%, 30%. It all depends on the certification agency to certification agency. So that need to be completed. Then once you make the payment, they plan for an audit or inspection. So they will ask for a particular date for an audit to happen. So if you agree for the particular date, then they come for audit. So based on your application, they decide how many number of days are required to complete your audit. if you are an individual farmer, and also the location matters a lot. So where you are located. For example, the certification agency is in Bangalore, and this producer is in Tamil Nadu or Kerala. So who will do the audit? So whether the auditor or inspector goes from Bangalore or he goes from a nearby place. So that all depends on the location and also the kind of staff the certification bodies have. So they do the planning, and they agree for a date with you, and then they do physical audit. That is, they do physical field inspection, as well as they do document verification, they do risk assessment, and they verify all the details of the farm records. They take interviews of the farmer, they check the previous crop history, what was grown previously and what you are practicing as of now. So they check all the details, and they prepare a report and submit to the office, that is certification body office. And there are evaluators or reviewers sitting there. They review your report submitted by the auditor, and then it goes for certification decision. So in the certification decision, that is, there will be a committee in the certification decision, and they will take a decision to certify, whether to certify or not based on the report. And then the certification decision, after that, a certificate will be issued for a period of 1 calendar year. So it is always, or from the date of inspection, it is calculated for 1 year. So it is taken for 1 year. Certification is always valid for 1 year. So they will issue the certificate, then you can start transacting. So how does the inspection happens or audit happens? So as I have mentioned to you, on-site visit to verify that the performance of the operator is in accordance with the specific standard. They evaluate and verification of agriculture production, processing and trading, interview the farmers and collect farm history and present practices, and they complete documentation by producers, processors and handlers, and findings of the report will be submitted to the certifier upon then certification happens. So what are the basic standards they follow? There is a system called organic system plan. That means they have to, you as a producer or a processor have to fill this document, organic system plan. Then the conversion period, I will come to that later. So your land management, your seeds and planting material, where you procure the seeds and planting material from for starting organic production practices. How is the diversity in your crop production and management? Whether there are no synthetic inputs directly or indirectly. There are no GMO. Non-GMO means genetically modified organism. So for example, in India, there is only one product as GMO, that is BT cotton, you might have heard. So this is the only GMO product that is in India as of now. They are trying to bring the brinjal also into GMO, but a lot of protests are going on. So still it is on hold. So they are not allowed. So actually the DBT, Department of Biotechnology in central government, so they are the ones who study this and give the approval for GMO seeds to be allowed in India. So now okay, so we were at the end of this certification decision. So findings will be, so the basic standards are evaluated, and the certification decision is taken accordingly. So what are the main requirements that auditor or an inspector he verifies? So first one is conversion requirements. There is a general requirement, it's called conversion requirement. And landscape. So how is your terrain? How is your landscape? Whether it is a very undulated topography, or you have a hillock or hills, or it is a plain topography, whether there are slopes or not slopes, it's a plain. Each and every minute details will be verified during the audit. Okay, so for crop production, there are so many criteria: conversion period, crop diversity, fertilizer, what fertilizers you have applied, what is the crop diversity, how is your pest and disease management, what are all the pesticides or biopesticides or the inputs you apply, what are the weedicides you apply for maintaining organic integrity. So where is the contamination? The contamination may be, for example, a farmer having 5 acres of land. So he has got a boundary, but a neighboring farmer who is not doing organic practices, he sprays certain chemicals. So then how the organic farmer can avoid the chemical contamination being from the neighboring plots. So all these things are verified during the audit. And soil water conservation, whether the soil and water is properly managed, there is soil erosion or not. If that is so, how the soil erosion is being controlled, water conservation techniques, everything will be verified. So it is a holistic approach. It is not just not using fertilizers and chemicals, you can call it as an organic. So there are so many things that auditor or inspector will verify. And also the planting material, so the seeds or the propagation material that is used for organic production will be verified. So let us see the basic concept of conversion period. What do you mean by conversion period? For example, I am a farmer, don't know anything, and I am practicing conventional methods. Conventional method is chemical farming. I want to change my chemical farming system into organic farming system. Then we call it as a conversion method. Conversion is the process of changing an agriculture farm from conventional farm to an organic farm. So this is called a transition. So it is also called as a transition period or a conversion period. What do you mean by conversion period? The conversion period is the time between the start of organic management and the certification of crops as organic. So you have to understand the two concepts here. Conversion is the process of changing an agriculture farm into a organic farm. For example, from tomorrow, I will not do any chemical farming. You take a decision, then you start converting your farm. So that day you have started your farming, organic farming. So from there onwards, you will not be using any unallowed substances on your farm. So your conversion period has started. Then what do you mean by conversion period? Conversion period is from the date of conversion you have started till the certification of the crops as organic is called conversion period. So anybody can claim that my crop is organic, but it all depends on the mutual trust between the producer and the consumer. So many people have seen they are doing hardcore organic farming, but they say we don't want certification, so we can't say anything for them. But for an outside consumer, if you want to sell it as organic, definitely the consumers will ask, so who is the certification agency? From where you got from? So how many years of certification you have completed? So all these things the consumers will ask. Then you will not be able to sell your produce as organic. So this is main important. So the start of organic management till the certification of crops is called conversion period. I'll just come to that little later. What do you mean by certified organic? Certified organic means an item has been grown according to the strict uniform standards that are verified by an independent state or private organization. Certification includes inspection of farm fields, processing facilities, detailed record keeping, that is bookkeeping, what are the records you maintain in your farm, and periodic testing of soil and water to ensure that growers and handlers are meeting the standards. So in NPOP, it is very clear. So there are so many procedures to that to get it certified to be grant a certification. It's called certified organic. So there are a lot of difference between a lot of terminologies. So as we go with more slides, you will be able to understand better. So what is the conversion period? So conversion period, as I have already mentioned to you, it starts from the day of stopping your chemical farming and when you have started your organic farming practices. The day one for you. For certification agencies, it is the day of first audit or first inspection. So for example, June 20th, they have come for your audit because you have applied for a certification. They have come for audit. So they take that date as conversion period or organic conversion period from that day. So how do they calculate? So they calculate basis on the number of months. For example, here you can see at the bottom, conversion period for annual crops. Annual crops in the sense like all vegetables. So that completes life cycle in 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, like even paddy, then cotton, so 6 months crop. So these are all annual crops which completes their lifespan within 4 months or 6 months. So these are all called annual crops. So these need to be certified only after 24 months. That means they have to undergo conversion period for 24 months from the first date of inspection. Even though you might have practiced organic farming practices since last 40 months, 80 months, 30 months, whatever it is, but you can't claim it as organic, but it all depends on your consumer. But you want to go legally as organic, then you need to get a certification. Then certification will start from first day of inspection for 24 months if you are growing any annual crops. If you are growing any perennial crops, it is conversion period applied is 36 months. That means once you complete 36 months, you are certified fully as organic for annuals. After 24 months, you will get a certification as organic. Till that period, your land will be under in conversion first year and under in conversion second year. So it is like that. So for perennial crops, most of the crops like tree crops, it will be perennial like mango, chiku, then guavas, and many fruit trees will be in perennial crops. So they need 3 years or 36 months as a conversion period. Only after that they get organic status. Otherwise, you have to be in conversion, and still there are so many buyers for in conversion products also. For the first year or the second year in conversion, there are many buyers in the market. So what do you mean by part conversion? For example, if you are converting your farm, organic and conventional part must be separate. If you are doing both organic, for example, a farmer has 3 acres. He don't want to do all the 3 acres in one go. He want to do only 1 acre as organic, other 2 acres as non-organic because of the risks involved, because of the marketing involved. Then he can do that, but that should be separate. There are 2 separate plots, or there must be some barrier from conversion plot and organic plot. So there must be a clear-cut differentiation between these 2 parts. So simultaneous production of conventional, in conversion and organic product which cannot be clearly distinguished is not allowed. So there must be some clear-cut barriers or separation between organic, conventional and in conversion land when you want to get your land certified. So as I have mentioned here, for example, you are growing pineapple and then organic and then conventional pineapple continuously. So of the same variety, then this is not allowed. So there must be a clear barrier and there must be a clear buffer zone between organic and conventional. Conventional in our terminology is your normal traditional practices, regular chemical farming is called conventional farming. So if your farm is under PGS system, as I have mentioned to you already, participatory guarantee system, if you are already in participatory guarantee system, then there is a chance that a certification agency can reduce the conversion period from 12 months to, from 24 months to 12 months. Or in case of perennial crops like fruit trees or other things, they can reduce the conversion period by 12 months. That is, for annual crops, the certification can be granted in 12 months itself instead of 24 months. And for perennial crops, it can be certified in 24 months instead of 36 months. The condition is you should have been in PGS system at least for 12 months. So what are the seeds and the planting material available? So when organic planting materials are available, so they shall be used. So when the certified organic planting materials are not available, chemically untreated conventional materials shall be used. This happens in case of mainly vegetables. You will not get certified organic vegetables, seeds. So then you can go for a chemical, untreated conventional methods, and you can wash it, you can do any treatment with some allowed substances, and then you can take up planting. Otherwise, the auditor will come and verify, and if the source is not clear, if he is not convinced, then there will be a non-compliance. So the use of genetically engineered seeds and transgenic plants is not allowed. As I mentioned to you earlier, so the chemical, the GMO seeds, for example, BT cotton in cotton is not allowed for organic production. So fertilization policy. So manures containing human excreta are not allowed. So here I would like to give you a very good example where I have come across. For example, I have been auditing in Kerala about 12 years back. So just to see like how the contamination comes from. So there was a group of 500 farmers who have grown organic pepper, and they have exported around 10 tons of organic pepper to Germany, and there was some detection as pesticide residue in the product. When I went for investigation, so I came to know that all the production processes are in place, but there was no proper clue for me to detect what is the source of contamination. So where does the contamination is coming from? Everybody is farming organic practices and you cannot find any unallowed substances. Then finally I found certain farmers using cow dung being smeared. So in front of their houses. So instead of tarpaulin, they have used cow dung for drying purpose. So they just smear the cow dung in front of their house. So in Kannada, we call it as sagani sarsadu. So we put it like that and we dry it. So if you have dry like that, so the pepper is highly hygroscopic. It will catch anything that come in contact with. So it has absorbed the chemicals in the cow dung. So earlier there was a lot of problem with the cow dung also. 15 years back, they used to spray a lot of DDT and certain chemicals for human health. So for malaria and other diseases, for killing mosquitoes. So once they have sprayed that, there are some drift that has come from the air. So then the cow, cattle, they are reared on certain plants which have been contaminated with the DDT and some other products. So the DDT, as you know, is not easily degradable. takes nearly 100 years, 200 years to degrade. So even 70 years also they have detected the DDT occurrence. So when we found out clearly, then we found out that there was a detection because of this. So means to say that we never know from where the contamination comes from. So the same way, seed material is very, very important. It should be free from any chemicals. So then again, the second thing is manure policy. An auditor checks for any manures being applied. So human excreta is not allowed. No synthetic inputs. So only naturally mined minerals are allowed. For example, your synthetic inputs such as urea, DAP, muriate of potash, and these are all synthetic inputs which is not allowed. But rock phosphate, gypsum, lime, and mica in natural form, as it is mined products, they are allowed. So they check and verify all these when they come for audit. So these should not be used, and these are all the things that should be used. So in cases where there are micronutrient deficiency, you can apply synthetic microchemicals by getting an approval from the certification agency. So if you can prove that your crop cannot sustain until and unless you spray micronutrient, then the certification body can allow, they have the power to allow you the micronutrients for spraying. Then you can apply that only for that particular period. If your crop is under severe threat, then only you can use with a prior permission from the certification agency. So what are the pest and diseases management? Pest, disease, and weed management. So everything is verified. So what are the biopesticides you have used? What are the weed management practices you have adopted? What are the equipments you have used? For example, an organic farmer, he borrows a knapsack sprayer from adjacent farmer who is a chemical farmer. So he has already sprayed chemical onto his farm, and because he doesn't have a sprayer on his own, he borrows the sprayer from him, and then he does his own method of organic farming methods, and he prepares on-farm concoctions or decoctions or biopesticides prepared on farm itself. Then he sprays, for example, neem oil he prepares or he buys from outside and he sprays. Still, there are chances that there are chemicals being detected because he has not thoroughly washed the sprayer from his spray. Actually, he has borrowed from the neighbor. So all these minute things matters a lot. So for example, an auditor comes for an inspection. If he takes certain samples from the plot, then easily some chemicals will be detected. Usually when the auditors come for inspection, they don't take the soil sample or water sample in the first year because you have just started the conversion period and it takes time for you to convert your farm into organic farm. So as per the lot of research, so the main idea is 24 months because they thought if there are any chemicals applied to the land, that will degrade in 2 years. So that is the main basis for them to consider for 24 months. And in case of perennial crops, the plants are deep rooted. So there are certain chemicals which go deep, even 5 feet, 10 feet deep into the soil. So there are chances that the tree crops uptake the nutrients along with these chemicals, and then there are chances that the pesticides may be detected. So in order to wash away all these pesticides from the land, so 24 months in conversion period is fixed for annual crops and 36 months for perennial crops. So what is your method of organic practices? So on-farm local preparations, animals, microorganisms allowed, your equipments, as I mentioned to you, classical example is your sprayers. This is the common practice everywhere. Sprayers are contaminated and you take up spraying, so that will end up in certain chemicals. So we never know from where the chemical contamination comes from. So you need to be very alert at each and every stage. And I would like to here tell important instances here. When I was doing auditing for basmati rice plant in Haryana in 2004-5. So organic basmati rice was produced by organic farmers, and nearly 2000 metric tons of organic basmati rice is kept in a warehouse or godown. So the processor wants to make organic rice out of organic basmati paddy. So the issue is, if you convert it into rice, there are chances that you may get a lot of pest attack. So even at the stage of storage pest, so we call it as a storage pest. So in paddy, there are so many weevils and a lot of other pests attack is there during storage condition also. So, and also a lot of rodents problems will occur. For example, they keep it in storage with rodent proof condition. So there are chances that your jute bags are damaged by rodent, for example, rats and other things, so some animals. So this company, what they have done is they have put everywhere almost in 2000 metric tons, 50 bags each with jute bags, kept very tight, kept aluminum phosphide tablets. It's called ALP, aluminum phosphide tablets, for avoiding any pests or any rodents. When I found this, there was no other way to take a sample from that 2000 metric ton lot. I have taken some sample and then get it analyzed in the laboratory, and unfortunately there was a detection of aluminum phosphide as a pesticide or a rodenticide detected. So the entire 2000 metric tons of that particular lot had to be rejected because of this unfortunate incident. So that means to say that at each and every step we need to be careful regarding the chemical contamination. So not only during production of your land, but also during storage and processing. Even it can happen at farmers' place also. They do all organic practices. For example, a farmer having 3 acres will do only 1 acre organic farming practices, and he brings to his home his produce, and he has got certain chemicals in his farm, on farmland or maybe at his house, kept very near to this storage. Then there are chances that this storage contamination may happen. So the farmers need to be trained, or they have to be made aware of these consequences. So this is what organic is all about. It's not just not using chemical pesticides or anything. It is contamination control. So as I mentioned to you, so use of synthetic pesticides are not allowed, and as per NPOP standard, there are list of approved inputs. You have to use those lists only. I'll show the other slide what the inputs are allowed and not allowed, or prohibited and not prohibited crops. inputs. So we'll come to that later. So you will understand what are allowed, permitted and non-permitted substances. So as I have mentioned to you, so fertilizers and pesticides, then weed management. So you cannot use any herbicides. So it's all as per Annex 2 and 3. So you have to follow the guidelines. So no synthetic growth regulators are allowed. For example, in case of processing, for example, a lot of companies like mango company are there. So they buy organic mango and they do organic mango pulp. So when they do processing, so there is separate processing aids and processing ingredients allowed. Especially they have given a separate list. What I'm talking about is on farm, what are allowed and unallowed, and also during processing. For example, many extractors are there. For example, organic ashwagandha is grown and it is processed in a process company as organic certified ashwagandha extract. When he wants to sell that as extract, then he need to follow the guidelines of organic. So there you have allowed substances for as processing aid and processing ingredient. What are the things allowed? So even a lot of companies are there, like even they are making chapatis, all food items, even noodles, organic noodles are coming up in the market. Organic wheat atta is available. There are n number of products that are available, but main demand for exports are from India are spices and medicinal herbs. Spices, medicinal herbs and coffee. Spices in the sense ginger, turmeric, cinnamon, cardamom, clove, nutmeg. Then you have got cumin seeds, fennel seeds, fenugreek, coriander. These products have great demand in Europe and USA. Apart from, there are good demand for basmati rice also, if you come to cereals. And also good demand for soybean, but not so for any other pulses as it is. And wheat is grown as wheatgrass powder. Moringa is that we call it as nuge sopu. So that is certified as organic, and moringa leaf powder is in great demand for organic certified moringa leaves as such. And also for mango, there is a great demand, especially for mango pulp. And also even fresh fruit as mango is sold as organic to Europe and US, actually even to Australia and Japan. So as I have told you, how you minimize the contamination. So a farmer cannot say to his adjacent farmer, no, please don't spray anything. So it is his will and wish to spray anything, but he, the farmer who is going to practice organic farming, has to control the contamination whatever the way possible. So he need to have a buffer zone clearly by growing large perennial bunds like Lantana camara and Gliricidia, and these are all the crops which grows on the hedge and at the border, and you can have big tall trees as a barrier. So these are all the methods he should adopt to avoid contamination, spraying contamination from a chemical farming to come inside his organic farming. So he should do the risk analysis, and based on that he need to take the precautions. So the plastics in your farm should be avoided at any cost. So plastics are not allowed and it should be protected. So it is an environmental safety, as I mentioned to you earlier. So then again, soil and water conservation techniques. So your where is the soil conservation, whether there are any erosions. For example, in paddy, this is a big challenge for organic paddy farmers, because paddy farmers will be adjacent to each other, and from one plot to another plot, the water flows, and from high elevation to low elevation, there will be washing away of chemicals from a chemical farmer to the organic farmer. So he need to protect his farm from this chemical contamination. So there should be checks and measures to avoid contamination. So soil erosion, due to soil erosion, but in extremely case conditions, we cannot do anything. For example, last year there was a huge flood. So all your lands are washed out. So many people, they don't know where their lands are. So in these cases, there are exceptions. Otherwise, so the soil erosions to be avoided in order to avoid chemicals from a chemical farming to a organic farming plot. Okay, so then you need to contaminate, you need to control the drifts, etc. So burning of organic residues or organic matter is not allowed. It is strictly prohibited, and in extreme cases you can burn, but with the permission of the certification body. So you should not burn the crop stubbles. So the main reason is you are burning the crop nutrient as well. But if there are any outbreak of any pests or anything, definitely you can burn with permission from the certification agency. So the final, the last and final certification is wild harvest certification. So as I told you earlier, so this is basically a collection of and harvesting of wild or naturally occurring commodity from natural habitat, that is from a forest area. So you collect and then you process it and you sell it as organic. So this is allowed. So the basic principle here is it should be naturally grown. The forest area should have a clear defined collection area. No prohibited inputs use history. No potential contamination. Sustainable collection. For example, Amla, this Ternalia, Chabula, Bellerica, and there are so many minor forest produce, even cinnamon leaves, etc. So it should be sustainable collection. So I have seen in many places, they can collect only leaves, means they just cut the entire branch and bring the produce. So this is not a sustainable collection. So they should avoid these kind of collections. They should only pluck leaves, only the economical parts. They should not just cut the entire branch, cut the entire tree like that. We have seen in many places. And for example, in BR Hills, Billigere Rangana Hills, so wild honey is collected from the Soligara Sangha, and that is collected and certified actually as certified honey. So you can collect, you can process, and you can so on, but it should be sustainable. It should not distract the environment. There should no disturbance to the diversity of the forest. There should be a full traceability from where they have brought the produce from. So contrary to organic agriculture fields where land and crops are certified organic, in wild collection only the plants are certified organic. The lands need to be approved but not certified. This is an important difference between organic agriculture, as land used as collection area cannot automatically be used as organic agriculture without a conversion period. So in the first year itself, you can get it organically approved because you are following a certain system as a wild collection. There are no chemicals being used in the forest. It is naturally grown. You have taken a permission from the forest, and that is sold as organic. So finally, if you are a farmer group, then your farmer group should be legally registered entity with either a society or a trust or a producer company or an NGO with minimum 25 farmers and maximum 500 farmers. It's called ICS, Internal Control System. So it's a big topic actually. So if we keep talking about organic certification, it needs another 4 or 5 sessions to complete the entire process of certification. So it's a smallholder farmer certification. So there are complete procedures how to certify, what are all the documents required for certification of a smallholder, whom do you call it as a smallholder, and there are so on and so forth. So just this is since an introductory presentation. So you must know the criteria who can be certified as organic. So the farmers should be producing the similar crop production system and should be in geographical proximity. That means to say the farmer should be close by. It should not be too much of scattered, this one. So this is also one of the methods of selecting the farmer. The farmer should be adaptive. He should be willing to grow organic crops, and he should not be too far away from other farmers. So if the farmers are close by, then it is easy to monitor, and the certification agency can do organic inspection very quickly, so that the time consumed for certification can be reduced. So if the farmers are scattered too much, for example, farmers in 2-3 different districts, then it is not correct. So it should be a geographical system, and they should be following a similar crop production system. For example, if you go to Shivamogga and Malnad area, so the farms are too much scattered, but still they have got all the traceability, they have got individual farming production practices, and the barriers being followed properly, then it's not an issue. But otherwise, in plain topography, certification agency expect the farmers to be in geographical proximity. So farms with more than 10 acres is considered as an individual farmer, and this will be inspected every year. So when that criteria comes, I will explain. So just for your idea, if there are 500 farmers, if there are 4 hectares and above, there are farmers, means they also can be certified, but they will be inspected every year. Example, how the audit happens is, if there are 100 farmers in a group, the certification agency will do a random audit, that is square root of the number of farmers, or the based on the risk involved. If it is highly risk, for example, vegetables, they do more number of farmers. If it is other crops, they do risk analysis and they do less number of farmers. But basically, they do square root of number of farmers. So, for example, 500 farmers means around 20 to 23 farmers to be inspected. So they will give you the offer letter based on these details, and also they charge per day basis, and also based on the number of days required for inspection. And also, if the farms are too scattered, then the audit fee will also increase, because they have to travel from one place to another place, and it will be distance matters. So these are all the things that will be taken into consideration before giving you the offer letter or the agreement or the certification fee. Once you agree, then only they will come for audit. So these are all certain things they follow for organic certification. So that's all from me. Thanks very much. If I have time, I can show a slide where the products allowed and unallowed substances are listed from APIDA. Otherwise, if we are running out of time, so we'll take up that in the next session. And I'm open to question and answers. So I will leave it to Dr. Chaitra to decide and advise, please.
Okay. So we have questions from the participants here in the chat box. I'll ask you the questions and you can answer them as we go.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Joe Brito has asked that high prices of organic produce are the major deterrent for people buying it. So we know that going for organic farming is quite expensive, but can't the government give some kind of subsidy to balance out this price for the costly affair for the consumers?
Actually, as I have mentioned earlier the certification cost was very high. Now, if you see the tariffs of all certification agencies, if you are a group farmer, then the certification costs are still less. Maybe they charge basis on the number of acreage, or maybe, as I have seen, maybe 200 rupees or so approximately that will come for a farmer to get certified in a group farming unit. So for example, if there are 500 farmers, a certification agency charges around 30,000, 25,000, depending on their, for example, the government agencies, as I have mentioned earlier, so they charge very minimal, even 25,000 rupees, they do certification. If you see that, so the certification cost per farmer will come to around 100 rupees or 150 rupees. So I don't think that's a very costly affair, but still the government has come forward already. There are a lot of government subsidies for certification, especially in Karnataka. When I was working for a POF Organic Certification Agency, Karnataka government under Savayava Bhagya Yojana, so they created 580 hoblis for organic certification. So that was divided into 3 certification agencies, 180 hoblis for each certification agency. The entire certification cost was borne by Karnataka government. So under organic certification subsidy. So and also there are so many schemes from central government, Paramparagat Krishi Vikasa Yojana, and there are so many subsidy schemes are available. If you avail all those schemes, I don't think there is a costly affair, but still a lot of discussions are happening because they are giving certification support only for 3 years. So what next after 3 years? That means they want to take the group on their own to take that further, because government cannot support 10 years, 15 years like that. So they need to be independent. So this is how the government is supporting. A lot of schemes are available, and then based on the risk crops, for example, chili, dry chili, red dry chili now is going very high. For example, it's very difficult to grow organically. So that will fetch you more than 50% premium in the market, even sometimes 70% premium. Otherwise, normally the organic products are being sold in the market with a premium of 15 to 20%. So there is no benchmark as such, but this is a traditional practice that is being followed by most of the organization, 15 to 20%, but in some cases it can go up to 50%, 70% based on the availability and risks of the crop. For example, cardamom is very difficult to manage organically, then that fetches high price. So it all depends on the crops and the risk involved, but in general 15 to 20%, that's what in the industry as of now.
And Mr. Pavan Kumar is asking, what is the scope for organic floriculture?
Organic floriculture as such, we have not come across who want to grow organic floriculture, but if somebody is doing, it is really very welcome, a warm welcome for them. Actually, there is a lot of inquiries for organic floriculture, especially for roses actually. But since the floriculture industry is mainly depend on chemical inputs, there are hardly anybody who are doing organically. So there is definitely a scope, and even APIDA is thinking on that line. So we must have an awareness for organic floriculture also. But so far, nobody has done it. But roses are certified as open field rose. The rose petals are certified organic, and that has got a very good demand in the international market. So people from Gujarat and Rajasthan, they are doing open rose cultivation, and then they only harvest the petals and they dry it and they are exporting it, but not in polyhouses or greenhouse. So already people are doing it, and even rose oil, rose water is also certified organic and is being exported to European and US countries. And also a lot of essential oils. For example, mint is the #1 product in herbs sector. Mint oil is exported to Europe and European, US countries. Vetiver oil, citronella oil, lemongrass oil. So these are all already organically certified, and they are finding their market in the industry. The same way, roses are also having very good demand. Rose petals are being sold as organic.
This is very interesting, sir. And next, Mr. Gangadri is asking, are all types of soil suitable for organic farming?
Yes, all types of soils are suitable for organic, but only it all depends on how you manage. As I mentioned earlier, you should avoid the slopes as much as possible, or you need to have certain soil erosion mechanism techniques adopted in your farm to avoid this soil erosion or water erosion. So then there is no limit for any soil as such, but red soil and black soil always they're dominating in other in tropical countries. So only a few like lateritic soil and other places with a lot of stones and all. So there are some slight difficulties, but still there are a lot of farmers who are with even lateritic soil have been able to grow crops organic, and they are able to sell it as organic.
Okay. Mr. Pawan Kumar wants to know if you can suggest some organic fertilizer for rice, which he is producing in 1 hectare area, and some kind and any suggestions for weedicides in rice.
Yeah, actually, so that as I mentioned to you, that's a separate topic altogether. So there are various input companies that have got organic approval by certification agencies. We can provide those lists. Actually, if you log into the website of APIDA and also the certification agencies website, so you can find list of certified operators, the individual farmers, growing grower group, and also certified organic input companies. You can find, for example, Margo Biocontrol. I cannot just mention a specific name here because it is not right on my part to give a specific name. But still, since he is asking, there are various companies here in India and even in Bangalore that are certified as organic. So you can approach them, and there are various, vermicompost and biopesticides. There are a lot of manures certified, even tea stains, for example, Margo Biocontrol. There are so many other companies that have been certified as organic inputs, and you can approach and you can get the proper, product for paddy and other cultivation.
Okay. The next question is, what is the procedure for registration for organic poultry and organic egg production?
Yes, as I showed you in one of the slides, so you have to approach to the certification body where I have already shown the list. So, and you have to mention for which certification you are interested in. If you are organic, poultry, it comes under animal husbandry. So they send the supply application packet and also separate documents to be filled by the producer or processor. So if you submit the application, and they will review your application, and they will give you the quotation for the inspection fees, and they send you all the procedures to be followed and all the standards to be followed. And also you can find, as I mentioned to you earlier, NPOP standard. If you download from the website, it's a 221 page document. It's very difficult to go through all those, but only part where they want to see, like organic animal husbandry part, they can just choose only those, and they can read themselves, they can understand. Otherwise, we can have a separate session on the separate certification for animal husbandry, beekeeping.
We can plan that, sir. We can plan that.
Yeah, separate like that. Yeah.
Okay. So there's another question from Induri, and she's asked whether atrazine weedicide is allowed in organic farming.
Sorry?
Atrazine weedicide, is it allowed?
No, actually, atrazine is a chemical weedicide actually, yes. So that is not allowed.
Okay. And Sanjeev wants to know whether there is any kind of government or third-party organic certification agency in Northeast India.
Northeast India, they don't have, but they have got branch offices in Northeast India, especially in Guwahati. Okay. So you can contact, for example, there is a company called OneCert Asia and also Control Union in Bangalore and Mumbai. They have got some branch offices in Guwahati and Kolkata. So they will help you from wherever they are, and auditors or inspectors come from that region only, so that the certification cost can be minimized.
Right. Okay. So Kaushik Subramani writes, I work for Concord Ingredients. We need to use organic certified farmer land to grow chili. The seeds are not organic certified. How to get the crop certified under the scheme? The issue is we have certain seeds that is used for extracts, and source available is not organic.
Yeah, as I have mentioned already, so you need to prove to the certification agency that you are not able to get organic seeds. In that case, you are allowed to use non-organic conventional seeds, and you can wash that, and you can treat with organic, like cow urine or trichoderma or any other whatever organic way, and then you can use that. So that provision is already made. But you need to prove that you are not getting organic certified seeds. Usually this is a main problem in vegetables actually. So they can get the approval and they can use it. So
okay. But they have to prove that they're not getting organic certified yes. seeds, right?
Yes.
Okay. And Saurabh Dubey is asking, what is the square feet area, the measurement for the buffer zone required between the organic field and the conventional field?
Yeah, actually there is no clear-cut mention in the standard. It's all depends on your contamination control. So it may be even 1 meter. If you can avoid the contamination from your neighboring plot to your plot, that's fine. But in generally, as per USDA, they say at least minimum 5 meters. They say as an organic buffer, but it all depends on how you manage. So if you have a strong buffer barrier at the border with a thick crops like lantana, gliricidia, tall crops, so you can clearly avoid contamination from your neighboring plots. But there is no specific this one, but it all depends on how you manage, but preferably 5 meters. Otherwise, you can have a 5 meter buffer zone, or you have 1 or 2 meters buffer zone. And during your harvest, you harvest the borders separately and sell it as conventional product, and then the inside crop they can harvest separately and then sell it as organic. Usually this is the practice in case of paddy. So if there are any problems in the buffer zone, what they do is the borders like 3 rows or 5 rows of the crops at the edge of the farm or the plot, they just harvest separately and sell it as conventional, and then they take inside the crop, inside rows, harvest it and claim it as organic separately. This also can be practiced.
All right. So there is Mr. Anand Deshmukh. He says we have plans to start organic vegetable seed production in India, especially in Maharashtra. So please suggest us the procedure for certification is one. And they also say that they want to dispatch the produced F1 seeds to Netherlands.
So regarding to the first question, organic vegetable seed production is really very good. So they can start, but as I mentioned to you, so the production plot must be managed organically. If they are having 2 acres or 3 acre production plot, so that production plot should be managed completely organic, and whatever they produce from, even for extraction of seeds, they cannot use any chemicals, unlike in other places I have seen. So they do some chemical treatment for the extraction and other things. So if they follow that, they can do the organic vegetable seed production. So, and also actually I mean to say, already organic cotton production is happening in Madhya Pradesh. So there is a great demand for organic cotton seeds in India, because many organic grower groups are there. Because of this BT cotton, there people are fed up and they are going for non-GMO seeds. And a few companies have come forward to start organic cotton seed production, and they are successful, and they are distributing very good quantities. So this is one example. And as I mentioned to you earlier, so vegetable is a very good sector where majority we don't find organic seeds. So this is the most challenging one, and if they can start, that really good for the farming community. Right. I'm sorry, so second question, can you kindly repeat it?
So they want to export it to Netherlands. So is a Indian certification enough, or should they go for a third-party certification from the EU?
Yes, they have to go for on top of NPOP, then they have to go for EU certification also.
Okay, all right. So the next question is, what is the minimum acreage a farmer should hold in order to get organic certification?
I have already mentioned in the slide, so there is no limitation for a farmer to get it certified organic. For an individual farmer I am talking about. But if you are in a group of farmers, so you can have a maximum of 4 hectares or even you can have more than that. But the certification agency will audit every year. Even for individual farmer, if they are going for a separate certification on their own for 5 acres or 10 acres, the audit happens every year, and the certification fee they have to pay every year. So there is no limit for the acreage here in the for organic certification.
Okay. So how to store pulses without pesticides as they are prone to borers?
Yeah, so a lot of companies have come forward, like Pest Control India, and there are so many other companies. They have come with this CO2 bags. It is carbon dioxide bags. There will be micro pores in it. So if you just store those grains, so you can store it for 6 months, 1 year, like that. So it will kill even the eggs or pupa or even minute flies. So it will protect from all these pest storage pests. So CO2 bags are available. You can seal it and keep it for months and years. That's the one, this one. And also organically means turmeric they are using for ants and flies. Turmeric powder they apply for all the stored bags, near to the stored bags, so that they can avoid storage pests. And also neem leaves they apply for storage pests. They keep neem leaves outside the bag and also maybe inside the bag also. So this is also one of the measure for controlling this one. And also some people they put garlic into the bags and then they tie it. So if there are any pests, it acts as a repellent and it will kill the flies or any other insect. It mainly as a repellent, but also kills sometimes. So, and otherwise, they can follow their own indigenous technology as and when they start doing organic. So there are so many things that will come to their mind. So these are all some basic things they can adopt to.
Yes, I think these remedies are good for household use also. Good
Yes.
ideas.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one is there any analytical procedure to test the product as organic or not for the consumers?
Yes, the products can be tested in any laboratories. So if you go to APIDA website, actually before exports, all these products have to be tested and test reports should be submitted to the certification agency. Only in case of exports I am talking about. So if the test reports says there are no detection of pesticide, actually, frankly speaking, the pesticide residue cannot be zero. It will always, there will be some minute particles or availability of pesticides in the product, but the standard limit that is set here is less than 0.05 ppm, that is parts per million. So it is, otherwise you can correct as 0.05 kgs, 0.05 milligrams per kg. So if the detection level is less than 0.05 milligram per kg, then it is approved. You can sell it as organic for European countries, but it all depends on the buyer. Even some of the buyers may ask for less than 0.01 milligram per kg. So this should be the detection level. The pesticide should be less than this limit. Then only they can export it as organic. So that can be again tested in all the Indian laboratories and even abroad also if they want to test it. But the testing cost is very high. This is viable only for the export. The certification agencies ask for it. That's why the exporters are able to afford it. For one pesticide analysis, certification agency will charge, testing laboratories, they charge anywhere between 5,000 to 8,000 rupees for more than 100 pesticides or 200 pesticides based on the requirement. But if you want only a few pesticides to be tested, then they can do so. They may charge around 500 rupees or 1,000 rupees or something like that, only for particular pesticides to be analyzed. It all depends on the requirement of the consumer.
There are quite a number of questions still, but we're very sorry we have run out of time. So if you have any queries, you can email it to Sir. Sir will share his phone number and email address. So, Sir, please can you share your email address?
Yeah, my email ID is MANOJ that is Manoj Sanketi, MANOJ SANKETHI 71 @gmail.com. Hope it's clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And your phone number, if you don't mind.
Yeah, my phone number is 87489 36999. I repeat, 87489 36999. My name is Mr. Manoj.
Yes. Thank you, Manoj sir, for your valuable time and sharing all your experience with us. All your practical examples have been so good and made us understand the procedure of organic certification. Thank you so much.